Marcus Johnson wiped his sweaty palms on his pants as he sat on the hard wooden bench outside courtroom 4B. The hallway buzzed with voices, lawyers hurrying past with briefcases, worried parents clutching documents, and court officers directing traffic. Marcus checked his watch again. 9:47 a.m. His case was scheduled for 10 o'clock a.m. 3 weeks ago, an official-looking envelope had arrived at his apartment. At first, he thought it was just another bill. Instead, it was a court summons for a paternity case. Someone named Tanya Wilson claimed he was the father of her 6-year-old son, Kevin. A vapor demanded he appear in family court on this date. Marcus shook his head, still confused. The name Tanya Wilson sounded slightly familiar, but he couldn't place it exactly. A 6-year-old child? That didn't make sense. Marcus had always been careful in his relationships. He lived a simple life, working construction jobs during the week, playing basketball with friends on weekends, and visiting his mother every Sunday. A child would have changed everything. They must have the wrong guy, Marcus had told his friend Ray when he showed him the papers. Ray wasn't so sure. These things happen, man. Maybe it's from that girl you dated years ago. What was her name? Teresa? Tana? Tanya, Marcus whispered now, as the memory suddenly came back. They had dated briefly, maybe 2 weeks, almost 7 years ago. They met at a friend's birthday party, went out a few times, but it didn't click. They parted ways without drama. She never mentioned being pregnant. Not once. Mr. Johnson? A court officer called his name, making him jump. They're ready for you. Marcus stood up, straightening his tie. He had bought it specially for today, dark blue with small diamond patterns. His mother always said to dress properly for important things. This was definitely important. The courtroom felt colder than the hallway. Marcus walked slowly to the front, where a table with his name on a small card waited. Across the aisle was another table, where a woman sat with her lawyer. Marcus recognized her immediately, Tanya Wilson. She looked different now. Her hair was shorter, she was heavier, but he remembered her face. She didn't look at him. All rise, the court officer announced as Judge Eleanor Simmons entered the room. She was an older woman with gray hair and glasses that hung from a chain around her neck. She moved with quick, confident steps to her seat. Case number 27,549, Wilson versus Johnson, paternity petition, the clerk announced. Judge Simmons looked through some papers before raising her eyes to survey the room. Ms. Wilson, you're claiming that Mr. Johnson is the father of your son Kevin Wilson, born May 12, 2018, is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, Tanya said, her voice clear and strong. The judge turned to Marcus. Mr. Johnson, you are disputing this claim. Marcus cleared his throat. Yes, Your Honor. I don't believe I'm the father. We only dated briefly 7 years ago. She never told me she was pregnant. Tanya made a sound, something between a laugh and a scoff. Her lawyer whispered something to her. Ms. Wilson claims you abandoned her when you learned of the pregnancy, Mr. Johnson, Judge Simmons said, looking at him steadily. Marcus felt his heart racing. That's not true, Your Honor. We dated for maybe 2 weeks. She never contacted me about any pregnancy. This is the first I'm hearing about a child. The judge nodded slowly. Well, fortunately, we don't have to rely on memories or accusations. The court has ordered a paternity test. Mr. Johnson, have you provided your DNA sample as requested? Yes, Your Honor. Last week at the lab they sent me to. Good, said Judge Simmons. We should have those results shortly. The court will take a brief recess until the lab report arrives. As the judge stood to leave, Marcus caught Tanya's eye for the first time. She quickly looked away, but not before Marcus noticed something strange in her expression. It wasn't anger or sadness. It looked almost like capitulation. 20 minutes passed as Marcus sat alone at his table. The court had emptied for the recess, but Marcus didn't want to risk missing anything by leaving. He watched Tanya and her lawyer in the corner of the room, speaking in hushed tones. Occasionally, Tanya would glance his way and quickly return to her conversation. Marcus pulled out his phone and texted his boss, still at court. Might be late for afternoon shift. He had already missed his morning work, costing him valuable hours of pay. Construction jobs didn't wait, and Marcus knew his foreman. The courtroom doors opened as a courier entered, carrying a sealed envelope. He handed it to the clerk, who took it with a nod. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. Those papers would determine the course of his life. "All rise." The court officer's voice boomed as Judge Simmons returned to the courtroom. Everyone stood as she took her seat and put on her reading glasses. "I have received the laboratory results," she announced, opening the envelope and scanning its contents. Her expression revealed nothing as she read. Marcus tried to control his breathing. 6 years of child support would drain his savings completely. He had been saving for a small house, hoping to move his mother out of her dangerous neighborhood. All those plans would vanish if the test said he was the father. "Ms. Wilson, Mr. Johnson." Judge Simmons looked up from the papers. "The DMA analysis has been completed with a 99.9% accuracy rate." The room fell silent. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat. "Based on these results," the judge continued, "the court determines that Marcus Johnson is not the father of Kevin Wilson." The words hit Marcus like a wave of cool water. Relief washed over him, making his knees weak. "Thank God," he whispered, closing his eyes briefly. When he opened them, he expected to see shock or disappointment on Tanya's face. Instead, she appeared oddly calm, whispering something to her lawyer, who nodded slightly. "The petition for child support is hereby dismissed," Judge Simmons continued. "Mr. Johnson, you are free to go." Marcus gathered his papers, ready to leave this nightmare behind. But something bothered him. Tanya's reaction didn't make sense. She should be surprised, upset, something. Instead, she was already packing her bag as if this outcome was expected. "Your Honor," Marcus said suddenly, surprising himself. "May I say something before we conclude?" The judge looked at him with mild surprise. "This case is dismissed, Mr. Johnson. You don't need to." "Please, Your Honor. Just 1 minute." Judge Simmons studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Proceed, but briefly." Marcus turned slightly, facing both the judge and Tanya. "Something isn't right here. Ms. Wilson doesn't seem surprised by these results." Tanya stiffened, her eyes flashing with anger. "After I got the summons," Marcus continued, "I was confused. I couldn't remember Tanya clearly at first, so I asked around. I talked to mutual friends we had back then." Marcus pulled a folded paper from his pocket. "I learned something interesting. I'm not the first man Tanya has taken to court for Kevin's paternity." The courtroom, quiet before, now became completely still. Even the court reporter paused, fingers hovering over her machine. "That's a lie," Tanya snapped, standing up. Her lawyer pulled at her sleeve, trying to get her to sit down. "James Watkins," Marcus read from his paper. "Taken to court in Jefferson County in 2019. Derek Powell, taken to court in Adams County in 2020. Both tests negative. Both men had to pay for testing and miss work." Judge Simmons frowned deeply. "Ms. Wilson, is this true?" Tanya's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, these allegations are irrelevant. The case is dismissed. We accept the results and wish to." "I'm not asking you, counselor," Judge Simmons interrupted sharply. "I'm asking your client." Her eyes bore into Tanya. "Ms. Wilson, have you brought paternity suits against other men for the same child?" Tanya's confident demeanor began to crack. She glanced at the exit doors, then at her lawyer. "Answer the question, Ms. Wilson," the judge insisted, her voice hardening. I thought they might be the father," Tanya stammered. "I was just trying to find." "Court records are sealed in paternity cases," Judge Simmons said. "But filing in different counties to hide previous cases is potentially fraudulent." Tanya's lawyer whispered urgently in her ear, but the damage was done. Marcus stood firm, watching as the judge's expression changed from surprise to concern to something harder to read. "This hearing is no longer dismissed," Judge Simmons declared. "We will take a 30-minute recess. I want to see both attorneys in my chambers immediately." As the judge stood, she looked at Marcus with new interest, then at Tanya, whose face had lost all its color. The court officer moved closer to Tanya's table, subtly blocking her path to the exit. Marcus sat alone on the bench outside the judge's chambers. Through the heavy wooden door, he could hear muffled voices but couldn't make out any words. 30 minutes had stretched into 45, and now nearly an hour had passed. A few feet away, Tanya paced nervously, her high heels clicking against the marble floor. Her lawyer had told her to stay close, but not to speak with Marcus. She kept checking her phone, typing furious messages with trembling fingers. "You should have just left it alone," she finally said, breaking the tense silence between them. "You got what you wanted. The test said you're not the father. Why couldn't you just walk away?" Marcus looked at her calmly. "Because this isn't just about me, is it? How many other men have you done this to?" Tanya's eyes narrowed. "You don't know anything about my life. You don't know how hard it is raising a child alone." "I grew up without a father," Marcus replied quietly. "My mother raised me by herself, working 2 jobs. She never tried to trick anyone for money." A court officer appeared before Tanya could respond. "Mr. Johnson, Judge Simmons would like to see you now." Marcus stood, straightening his tie again. As he walked toward the door, he felt Tanya's angry gaze following him. The judge's chambers were smaller than he expected. Judge Simmons sat behind a large desk covered with papers and law books. Next to her stood a serious-looking woman in a dark suit who wasn't present during the hearing. "Mr. Johnson, please sit down," the judge said, gesturing to a chair. "This is District Attorney Susan Cohen. She's joined us because of the unusual nature of this situation." Marcus nodded politely to both women as he sat. "I've been reviewing some records," Judge Simmons continued. "It appears you were correct. Ms. Wilson has filed paternity claims against 4 different men in 3 different counties over the past 6 years." The district attorney opened a folder. "We've also discovered that Ms. Wilson has been collecting partial child support from 2 of these men simultaneously, despite negative paternity tests. She's been using different addresses and slightly different names to avoid detection." Marcus shook his head in disbelief. "So she knows who the real father is?" "That's unclear," Judge Simmons replied. "But what is clear is that she's been manipulating the system." "How did you find this out?" Day Cohen asked Marcus. "Most men would have simply left after being cleared by the test." Marcus shifted in his seat. "My friend Ray, he went through something similar last year. Different woman, but same situation. When I told him about my case, he suggested I ask around about Tanya. It didn't take long to find James Watkins. He told me about Derek Powell. Then I found court records online for the different counties." Judge Simmons looked impressed. "That was good detective work, Mr. Johnson." "I just wanted to understand what was happening," Marcus said. "When I saw her face after the results, she didn't seem surprised. That's when I knew something wasn't right." Day Cohen closed her folder. "Ms. Wilson is likely facing charges of fraud, perjury, and misuse of court resources. If she's been collecting welfare benefits while also receiving undeclared child support, there will be additional federal charges." "What about her son?" Marcus asked, surprising both women. "Kevin will likely be placed with family members temporarily," the judge explained. "Child services will be involved." Marcus nodded slowly, thinking of the boy he'd never met. A child who had done nothing wrong but was caught in his mother's web of lies. "Mr. Johnson," Judge Simmons leaned forward, "I want to thank you for bringing this to the court's attention. Your actions today have potentially stopped years of fraudulent behavior." "I just did what seemed right," Marcus replied simply. As he stood to leave, D.A. Cohen handed him her card. "We'll need a formal statement from you. Please call my office tomorrow to arrange a time." Marcus took the card and nodded. When he opened the door to leave, he saw Tanya being escorted into a separate room by 2 court officers. Their eyes met briefly. This time, there was no calculation in her expression, only fear. In the main hallway, Marcus checked his watch. He had missed his entire work shift. He should have felt angry about the lost wages, but instead, a strange sense of peace washed over him. For the first time since receiving that summons, he felt like he could breathe freely again. His phone buzzed. A text from Ray. "How did it go?" Marcus typed back, "Not the father." But that's just the beginning of the story. 2 days later, Marcus sat in District Attorney Cohen's office, a cup of coffee cooling on the desk in front of him. The walls were lined with law books and framed diplomas. Through the window, he could see dark clouds gathering, threatening rain. "I appreciate you coming in, Mr. Johnson," Day Cohen said as she reviewed her notes. "We've been investigating Ms. Wilson's activities since the hearing." Marcus nodded. "Have you found anything else?" "More than we expected," she replied. pushing a folder across the desk. Take a look. Marcus opened the folder and found photographs of bank statements, court documents, and what appeared to be welfare applications. His eyes widened as he flipped through the pages. Ms. Wilson has been running this scheme for nearly 6 years, Cohen explained. Not just with Kevin, but with her older daughter as well. She has another child? Marcus asked, surprised. A 10-year-old daughter named Alia. Different father, same pattern of behavior. Cohen pointed to one of the documents. She's collected over $95,000 from various men, plus welfare benefits she wasn't entitled to while receiving that money. Marcus shook his head in disbelief. How could nobody catch this before now? She was careful. Different counties, different social workers, slightly different names. Tanya Wilson, T. Wilson Smith, Tanya W. Smith. Small variations that are easy to miss in a system that's already overloaded. Cohen sighed. Unfortunately, it happens more often than people realize. A knock at the door interrupted them. Cohen's assistant entered with a thick file. The background check on Kevin Wilson's birth certificate just came in, she said, handing the file to Cohen. Thank you, Jenny, Cohen said, opening the new file. She scanned its contents quickly, her expression growing serious. What is it? Marcus asked. The name listed as the father on Kevin's birth certificate, Cohen said slowly, is Darnell Washington. Does that name mean anything to you? Marcus thought for a moment, then shook his head. No, I don't know any Darnell Washington. Cohen turned the file around to show Marcus a mugshot of a hard-faced man with a scar across his left cheek. Darnell Washington is currently serving 15 years in state prison for armed robbery. He's been incarcerated since before Kevin was born. So he can't be the father either, Marcus concluded. Exactly. Ms. Wilson likely used his name because she knew he wouldn't appear to contest it. She's been collecting benefits as a single mother with an incarcerated partner. Cohen closed the file. We've located the actual biological father through DNA database matching. His name is Eric Taylor. Does he know he has a son? Marcus asked. He does now. We contacted him yesterday. Cohen's expression softened slightly. He was shocked, to say the least. He and Ms. Wilson had a brief relationship 6 years ago. When we told him about Kevin, he immediately requested a paternity test. It came back positive. A heavy silence filled the room as Marcus absorbed this information. Somewhere in the building, a door slammed, the sound muffled by distance. What happens to the children now? Marcus finally asked. Alia is staying with her maternal grandmother temporarily. For Kevin, Cohen hesitated. Mr. Taylor has been cooperative, but he's made it clear he's not interested in taking custody. He's married with 2 other children. He's willing to pay support going forward, but that's all. Marcus felt a tightness in his chest, thinking about the little boy caught in this mess. A child who had done nothing wrong. Can I see him? The question left Marcus's mouth before he'd fully formed the thought. Cohen looked surprised. See who? Kevin? Yes, Marcus said, more certain now. I'd like to meet him. I know I'm not his father, but... That's unusual, Cohen replied carefully. He's currently in emergency foster care while we sort this out. Why would you want to meet him? Marcus struggled to explain the feeling pulling at him. I grew up without a father. My mom did her best, but there were times I needed a man to talk to, you know. This kid's about to learn his whole life has been a lie. His mom's going to jail. His real dad doesn't want him. I just thought maybe I could help somehow. D.A. Cohen studied Marcus for a long moment. Then she picked up her phone. Jenny, can you connect me with Sarah Daniels at Child Services? Yes, regarding the Wilson children. She glanced at Marcus. Tell her I have someone she might want to meet. Outside, the rain finally began to fall, pattering against the window in a gentle rhythm. The Children's Services building smelled of cleaning products and crayon wax. Marcus sat in a small waiting room, surrounded by colorful posters and well-worn toys. A clock on the wall ticked loudly, marking each passing minute. Mr. Johnson? A woman with curly gray hair and kind eyes appeared in the doorway. I'm Sarah Daniels, Kevin's caseworker. Thank you for coming. Marcus stood, wiping his sweaty palms on his jeans. Thank you for letting me see him. Sarah led him down a hallway lined with children's artwork. I should warn you, she said quietly. Kevin doesn't know the full situation yet. He knows his mother is in trouble, but he doesn't understand why. He's been told he'll be staying with us for a while until things get sorted out. Marcus nodded. I understand. I won't say anything to upset him. D.A. Cohen explained your unusual request. Sarah continued, stopping outside a door decorated with superhero stickers. It's not common for someone in your position to want involvement. May I ask why this matters so much to you? Marcus thought carefully before answering. When I was 7, my dad left. Just disappeared one day. No explanation, no goodbye. My mom never badmouthed him, but I grew up with this hole inside, wondering what I did wrong. He looked directly at Sarah. Kevin didn't do anything wrong either. I just thought, maybe I could be someone who shows up instead of someone who leaves. Sarah studied him for a long moment, then smiled gently. Kevin's in the playroom. He's been drawing pictures all morning. She opened the door to reveal a bright room filled with toys, books, and art supplies. A small boy sat alone at a table by the window, hunched over a piece of paper, colored markers scattered around him. His dark skin contrasted with the bright yellow shirt he wore, his small face set in concentration. Kevin, Sarah called softly. There's someone here who'd like to meet you. The boy looked up, his expression guarded. At 6 years old, Kevin had his mother's eyes but none of her calculating coldness. Instead, Marcus saw wariness and confusion, the look of a child who didn't understand why his world had suddenly changed. Hi, Kevin, Marcus said, approaching slowly. My name is Marcus. What are you drawing there? Kevin hesitated, then turned his paper so Marcus could see. It was a drawing of a house with a woman and a boy standing outside. The son in the corner had a smiling face. That's me and my mom, Kevin explained, his voice small but clear. At our home. Marcus nodded, sitting in a tiny chair that barely held his weight. That's really good. You're a great artist. When can I go home? Kevin asked suddenly, looking at Sarah. Miss Sarah says I have to stay here, but I want to go home. My mom needs me. The simple question hung in the air. Sarah knelt beside Kevin. Remember what we talked about. Your mom has some grown-up problems to fix. You're going to stay with us just for a little while. Kevin's lower lip trembled slightly, but he nodded bravely. Marcus felt his heart ache for this little boy. Hey, Kevin, do you like basketball? Kevin looked up, interest flickering across his face. Yeah, my mom lets me watch games sometimes. I play basketball on weekends with my friends, Marcus said. We're not very good, but we have fun. Maybe someday you could come watch a game. Really? For the first time, Kevin's face brightened. Sarah gave Marcus an approving nod. Kevin, why don't you show Marcus your other drawings while I get us some snacks? As Sarah left the room, Kevin cautiously pulled out more artwork from a folder. This is my school, he explained, showing a picture of a brick building. And this is my friend Miguel. He has a dog named Rocket. Marcus listened attentively as Kevin described each drawing. Slowly, the boy's initial wariness faded. He laughed when Marcus tried to draw a basketball and it came out looking more like a misshapen apple. You're not very good at drawing, Kevin said with the brutal honesty of a 6-year-old. No, I'm terrible, Marcus agreed with a chuckle. But you know what? That's okay. Everyone's good at different things. I can't draw, but I can build things. I help make houses and buildings. Like with tools? Kevin asked, eyes widening. Exactly. With big tools and machines. That's cool, Kevin said, clearly impressed. When Sarah returned with juice boxes and crackers, she found them building a tower out of colored blocks, Kevin giggling as Marcus pretended to be terrified each time the tower wobbled. For a brief moment, watching Kevin laugh, Marcus forgot about Tanya's scheme, the court case, and all the complications. He saw only a little boy who deserved better than the hand he'd been dealt. 2 weeks passed. Marcus found himself returning to the Children's Services Center every few days. Each visit, Kevin seemed a little less withdrawn, a little more willing to smile. They built block towers, read superhero comics, and played simple board games. Marcus never mentioned the court case or Tanya. He was just there, steady, patient, and kind. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon, Marcus arrived to find Sarah Daniels waiting for him in the lobby instead of at her usual desk. Sarah sighed. She told Kevin that his mother did something wrong and might go to jail for a long time. She also mentioned that they found his real daddy, but he doesn't want Kevin. Marcus shook his head. That's too much for a 6-year-old to process. I agree, Sarah said. The grandmother meant well, but she doesn't understand how to explain these things to a child. Kevin's been asking questions I'm not sure how to answer. Is he still willing to see me? Marcus asked. Actually, he's been asking for you. Sarah led him toward the playroom. He seems to trust you. When they entered, Kevin wasn't drawing or playing as usual. He sat alone by the window, watching raindrops chase each other down the glass. His small shoulders were hunched forward, making him look even smaller than his 6 years. Kevin, Marcus called softly. It's me, Marcus. The boy turned, his eyes red from crying. For a moment, he just stared at Marcus. Then, without warning, he ran across the room and threw his arms around Marcus's waist, burying his face against his stomach. Surprised, Marcus gently placed a hand on Kevin's back. Hey, buddy. Rough day, huh? Kevin nodded without looking up. Marcus guided him to the couch in the corner and sat down. Kevin climbed up beside him, still staying close. You want to talk about it? Marcus asked. Kevin picked at a loose thread on his shirt. Grandma says my mom did bad things. She says Mom's going to jail. His voice was barely above a whisper. And she said they found my real dad, but he doesn't want me. Marcus chose his words carefully. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, Kevin. Your mom made some mistakes, and yes, she might have to go away for a while because of them. That doesn't mean she doesn't love you. What about my dad? Grandma says he knows about me now, but he doesn't want to be my dad. Kevin looked up at Marcus, his eyes pleading for an explanation that would make sense of his crumbling world. What's wrong with me? Why doesn't he want me? The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. He had asked himself the same question countless times as a child, lying awake at night wondering why his own father had left. Kevin, listen to me, Marcus said firmly but gently. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you. Nothing. Your father's choice has everything to do with him and nothing to do with you. Some people just aren't ready to be parents, even when they should be. But everybody has a dad, Kevin insisted. Miguel has a dad. Tyler has a dad. Even Zoe has 2 dads. Marcus nodded. That's true. And you have a dad too. But having a dad who's around and being the good father are 2 different things. He paused, then added, You know, I grew up without my dad too. Kevin looked up in surprise. You did? Yep. He left when I was about your age. It was just me and my mom. Were you sad? Kevin asked. Very sad, Marcus admitted. And sometimes angry too. But my mom loved me enough for 2 parents. And I had other people who cared about me. My uncle, my basketball coach, my mom's friend Mr. Wilson who lived next door. They weren't my dad, but they were there for me. Kevin seemed to think about this. So who's going to be there for me? Grandma says she's too old to take care of me and Alia. The question hung in the air. Sarah, who had been quietly observing from the doorway, stepped into the room. Kevin, we're working on finding you a really good foster family, she explained. Someone who will take care of you while your mom sorts things out. Kevin's face fell. Will I have to leave my school? What about Miguel and my other friends? Before Sarah could answer, Marcus spoke up. Kevin, can you give me and Miss Sarah a minute to talk? There's a cool new puzzle on the table over there. Maybe you could start putting it together, and I'll help you finish it. Kevin nodded and reluctantly moved to the puzzle table. Once he was out of earshot, Marcus turned to Sarah. I want to apply to be Kevin's foster parent, he said, the words surprising even himself. Sarah's eyebrows shot up. Marcus, that's a huge commitment. You barely know him. I know enough, Marcus replied firmly. I know he's a good kid who needs stability right now. I know what it feels like to be in his shoes. He glanced over at Kevin, who was carefully sorting puzzle pieces by color. I have a steady job, a clean record, and a 2-bedroom apartment. I can do this. The foster parent application process was more complicated than Marcus had imagined. Background checks, home studies, interviews, and mountains of paperwork filled his evenings after long days at construction sites. His small apartment, once barely decorated and mainly used for sleeping, slowly transformed. The spare bedroom that had stored his tools and basketball gear now held a child-sized bed with superhero sheets, a desk for homework, and a bookshelf filled with colorful stories. You're really doing this, Ray said one Saturday as he helped Marcus assemble a dresser. Man, a month ago you were freaking out about being someone's dad. Now you're voluntarily signing up. Marcus tightened a screw on the drawer. It's different. I'm not Kevin's father. I'm just giving him a safe place while his mom's case works through the system. Ray gave him a skeptical look. And if she gets 10 years, kids get attached, Marcus. You ready for that? The question hung in the air as Marcus considered it. Before he could answer, his phone rang. It was Sarah Daniels. Marcus felt his stomach drop. But he said he didn't want Kevin. He doesn't. He wants his mother, Kevin's paternal grandmother, to take Kevin instead. Mrs. Taylor just submitted her own application. I need to talk to him, Marcus decided, face to face. Finding Eric Taylor wasn't difficult. A quick social media search revealed he worked at an auto repair shop across town. The next morning, Marcus parked his truck outside Taylor's auto service and waited. At lunch break, a man in blue coveralls emerged from the garage. He matched the photo Marcus had seen in Cohen's file, tall, light-skinned, with a trimmed beard and serious eyes. Eric Taylor. Eric? Marcus called, approaching carefully. My name is Marcus Johnson. I need to talk to you about Kevin. Eric's face hardened. I know who you are. You're the guy trying to take my son. I'm not trying to take anyone, Marcus replied calmly. I'm trying to give Kevin stability while his mother's in jail. My mother can do that, Eric shot back. She's family. You're nobody to him. Kevin knows me. We've been building a relationship these past weeks. Eric stepped closer, his voice low. Look, I've got my own family now. My wife doesn't need the drama of some other woman's kid showing up. My mother taking him is the best solution. Has your mother even met Kevin? Marcus asked. Eric looked away. No, but blood is blood. Kevin isn't just blood. He's a real boy with feelings and fears. He's already lost his mother. Now you want to send him to a stranger just because she's related to you. My mother is a good woman, Eric insisted, but his voice held less conviction. I'm sure she is, Marcus acknowledged. But Kevin needs consistency right now. I've been seeing him 3 times a week for a month. He trusts me. Eric studied Marcus for a long moment. Why do you care so much? He's not your responsibility. The question made Marcus think of his own childhood, of the men who had stepped up when his father stepped out. Because someone did it for me, Marcus answered simply. My basketball coach, Mr. Rivera. He had no reason to care about me. But every Saturday for 5 years, he picked me up, took me to practice, made sure I had lunch after. He taught me more than basketball. He showed me what a man should be. Eric's expression softened slightly. I'm not trying to replace you, Marcus continued. But right now, Kevin needs someone who sees him, really sees him, not just a DNA connection, but his heart. A mechanic called from the garage door, telling Eric his break was over. Just meet him once before the hearing, Marcus urged. See the boy, not just the situation, then decide. Eric hesitated, then nodded slowly. Thursday morning. Before the hearing, I'll meet him at Children's Services. As promised, Eric arrived at the center Thursday morning. Marcus watched from across the room as Sarah introduced him to Kevin. The boy was shy at first, avoiding eye contact. But when Eric mentioned cars, Kevin's eyes lit up. They spent 30 minutes together, Kevin showing Eric his drawings, Eric awkwardly but genuinely interacting with the son he'd never known. When it was time to leave for court, Eric approached Marcus. He's a good kid, Eric said quietly. Yes, he is, Marcus agreed. Eric took a deep breath. I'm dropping the motion. I'll tell my mother she can visit Kevin, but he glanced back at the boy who was now gathering his drawings. He deserves better than being shuffled around to strangers, even if they're family. Marcus extended his hand. Thank you. As they shook hands, Kevin looked up and saw them together, the father he'd just met and the man who had chosen to be there for him. He smiled hesitantly, not understanding the significance of the moment, but sensing it was important. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the back of courtroom 4B, the same room where his journey with Kevin had begun. The wooden benches were filled with spectators waiting for various cases. Unlike his first appearance, Marcus wasn't nervous today. He was here by choice, not by summons. Tanya Wilson sat at the defendant's table, wearing a plain gray dress instead of her usual stylish clothes. Her hair was pulled back simply, her face free of makeup. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of her actions. Judge Eleanor Simmons entered the courtroom, and everyone rose. After taking her seat, she looked directly at Tanya. Ms. Wilson, you have pled guilty to multiple counts of fraud, perjury, and welfare violation. Before I pronounce sentence, do you have anything to say? Tanya stood slowly. Yes, Your Honor. I want to apologize for my actions. I was wrong to deceive the court and these men. I was trying to provide for my children, but I chose a dishonest path. Her voice trembled slightly. I'd lost everything because of my choices. My freedom, my home, and worst of all, my children. Judge Simmons nodded. Ms. Wilson, your crimes were not victimless. You caused emotional distress and financial hardship to multiple men. You abused our court system and diverted resources from families truly in need. The judge paused, looking down at her papers. However, I also recognize that your guilty plea has saved the court time and resources, and you have cooperated fully with the investigation. The courtroom was silent as everyone waited for the sentence. I hereby sentence you to 3 years in state prison, with possibility of parole after 18 months. Upon release, you will serve 2 years of supervised probation and pay restitution to all affected parties. Tanya's shoulders slumped as she heard the sentence. She nodded slowly, accepting her fate. As court officers approached to escort Tanya away, she turned and scanned the courtroom. Her eyes found Marcus, widening in surprise at his presence. 5-minute recess, Judge Simmons announced, standing. The courtroom buzzed with conversation as people stood and stretched. Marcus hesitated, then walked forward to the barrier separating the gallery from the court floor. Tanya approached from the other side, a court officer watching closely. I didn't expect to see you here, she said quietly. I wanted to hear the outcome, Marcus replied. Tanya studied his face. How is Kevin? The simple question caught Marcus off guard. In all the legal proceedings, Tanya rarely asked about her son's well-being. He's doing well. He started first grade last month. His teacher says he's good at math. Tears formed in Tanya's eyes. Does he ask about me? Thank you for that, Tanya whispered. The social worker told me you're his foster parent now. Marcus nodded. Temporary guardianship while you serve your time. He knows you're his mother. That will never change. And when I get out? Tanya asked hesitantly. Outside the courthouse, the autumn sun shone brightly. Marcus checked his watch. Just enough time to pick up Kevin from school. Today was their weekly basketball practice at the community center. Kevin was still learning, but he could dribble pretty well for a first grader. As Marcus drove across town, he thought about the strange path that had brought him here. 6 months ago, he'd stood in that same courtroom, terrified of being named a father to a child he'd never met. Now, he was voluntarily parenting that very child, and couldn't imagine his life any other way. His phone rang through the car speakers. It was Sarah Daniels from Children's Services. Hi, Marcus. Just checking in before our monthly visit tomorrow. How are things going? Really good, Marcus replied. Kevin got an A on his spelling test yesterday. He's excited to show you. That's wonderful, Sarah said. And how about you? This arrangement was unexpected for everyone. How are you holding up? Marcus smiled as he pulled up at Kevin's school, seeing the small boy waiting on the steps, backpack almost as big as he was. When Kevin spotted Marcus's truck, his face lit up with recognition and trust. You know, Marcus told Sarah, watching Kevin run toward him, sometimes the family you choose is more important than the family you're born into. We're doing just fine. As Kevin climbed into the truck, chattering excitedly about his day at school, Marcus felt a sense of peace settle over him. The court case that had turned his life upside down had also given him purpose. Ready for basketball practice, buddy? He asked, helping Kevin buckle his seatbelt. Yes. Kevin beamed. I've been practicing my shooting like you showed me. As they drove away from the school, a father and son in every way that truly mattered, Marcus knew that sometimes the most unexpected journeys lead to exactly where you're meant to be.